What's the worst thing that I had to do to a child molester in prison? Well, coming into the prison system at 22 and thinking I would not get out till I was around 30, when I first got in there, I had no understanding of emotional discipline. I did not want to be a victim, and I was a monster because you only get one choice. What are you going to choose? Yet, I still had the younger me that had so much rage and hate towards these chomos and these rapists and these pedophiles and these weak, just nasty motherfuckers. And in Florida, when you go in there and you're young, especially a young white boy, whether you like to hear this or not, you better learn to fight and be violent. I took the time to read as much as possible, learn as much as possible, work out all the time, yet the extortions, the chaos, the violence, the mayhem, it was every single day, especially coming through the youth authority first. Youth offender, programs, whatever they call it from state to state. And there's only one currency that's accepted in prison, and that's respect. Money can't buy it. The only thing that can buy it is violence. In the beginning, I went through a lot of fights, test of hearts, had my orbital bone broke, I was stabbed, went through a lot. But I refused to stand with the gang politics for personal reasons, and plus I could do bad on my own. I could be John Gotti without Sammy the Bull, does that make sense? So as I matured and my emotions became disciplined, my mind, my body, my spirit, I understood the art of violence, the art of corruption, every way to move in here, the politics, the game, the landmines you got to watch out for. And I happened to find out that there was a child molester that hurt somebody in my community. I didn't know the person, but it was my responsibility to handle that if I could get my hands on him. One thing about Palm Beach County, if you're solid, we all look out for each other. It's not really a racial thing unless people are in certain gangs or they get turned out to certain lifestyles in prison. But if you're from Palm Beach and you're just doing your time and you're solid, we all look out for each other. That's where this old saying comes from in Florida: home team, canteen. It's like a joke, like, you're from where I'm from, now feed me. Prison is just like the free world. Obviously, it's just the criminals, the psychopaths, the rapists, the corruption isn't hidden as much. It's right in our face, and we're able to handle it immediately. Or, like I say all the time doesn't exist, only opportunity. However, it's the opposite in prison. When you get out, you can change and show people by good actions, and people will love you and give you that success story. Whether you take the initiative and go after somebody because you feel they're going to get you and you want to get them first, you end up being in a life that you never thought you would ever accept. You see things, you go through things, you do things that you never thought in your life you were capable of, whether it's violence, whether it's isolation 24/7, not showering for 3-4 days out of the week for months and months at a time, and you learn to either be unbreakable. And one thing I learned back there is the ones with the discipline and the self-love are the unbreakable ones. So my reputation wasn't because I was some badass. It was because I refused to let a child molester in my area without trying to beat the shit out of them. If anybody disrespected me, it didn't matter if I got stabbed, win, lose, or draw, I will never be a victim, because I've seen too many people get turned out in there. And they say, well, I'm going to go home soon. But they go home with diseases. They go home weak, soft. They can't even look at themselves in the mirror. Some of them just die, commit suicide. I know dudes in prison right now that had 3 years and turned it into 27 years because they had no choice. It was either be a warrior or a victim. It was either let somebody do them in the worst way possible, and you have to live with that for the next 2.5 years, or you defend yourself, make a point, and yeah, you're going to do a lot more time if you get caught. However, he's more free doing those 27 years than those dudes that allowed abuse to happen to them because they were weak. They came to prison when they were gangbanging and robbing houses and beating people up and doing all types of wild shit. But they had the phones, they had the cars, they had the guns. In prison, they don't have that. So they crumble and they accept abuse, or they get friendly extorted. They let their families get extorted. I'm not having any of that. I've already dishonored myself by kicking in doors and robbing drug dealers. to ever be put in a decision where I choose the wrong decision. An ass whooping, a stabbing, death, whatever it may be, it sucks. It is. But nothing hurts worse than looking yourself in the mirror every day knowing you're a coward. So all these people that are tough, gangsters out here, 99.9 of them get to prison. They got their head down and they're getting extorted. Their families are getting extorted, and their excuse is, well, I go home soon. Or they're getting beat up, they're getting taken advantage of in the worst way, or they're getting embarrassed, slapped around, used, abused. But I go to work release soon. And all of a sudden you see the dude talking about, I'm about to leave. And he went from, his nickname was Murder to Harrison Hilton. Yeah, he'll be free before me, but he'll never be free mentally. He'll go home to his family. He'll never be the same. How do you raise your son? How do you raise your family? How do you have any integrity? We're already in prison for doing crime, drugs, stealing, armed robberies, fighting, murders. The least we can do is give back to society by being solid and taking out these child molesters, because that's one thing that affects all of us. You just don't hurt kids. You don't hurt women like that. So anyway, in the beginning of my sentence, I spent a lot of time in confinement. And in confinement, I get word from an officer who says that this child molester is going to be in C-dorm, where I'm going to be when I get released in 90 days. Now, I know I have to handle that. I want to handle that. I'm going to handle that. But there's multiple ways that you have to do this. My friend Spawn, who I'm going to talk about in another video, he turned 3 years into 27 years because a dude tried to get on him, and he ended up waiting a couple days, whatever it was, stabbed him in the chow hall and ripped his intestines out. But the psychology behind the way I look at it is, all right, this dude hurt women and children. He's got to go. He's a piece of shit. He's no curing him. Now, the way everybody looks at it is, I have to do something so drastic. If I don't, then I'm soft now. The second you want to change your life and be good in prison, they're going to say, oh, he's changing. He thinks he's better than us. So I'd have to compartmentalize. On the inside, I was a poetic philosopher, Renaissance man. On the outside, I was an educated, intelligent savage. So I plotted, and I realized that I'm not going to kill him. I'm not going to kill this dude. And things happen. I've seen dudes take beatings too far, and dudes die on the spot. I have to do something to where everybody knows that I will fuck a child molester up. I'm not getting soft. However, I changed my life internally. Just externally, I can't show any weakness. So if I go in there like I would normally do and savagely beat this child molester, then guess what? I might end up killing him, and that's a life sentence. However, I would love to do that, and most likely I would get away with it, yet there's a high probability of getting caught. Now, if I go in there and hit him with the knife, yeah, that'd be an easy one, flush it, but most likely I get caught, and if he does die, then I'm looking at a little bit of time if the officers aren't going to play ball. I normally would raise my hand for someone that is this horrible and just think with pure emotion. I'm now a little bit more Machiavellian in my approach. So I decide that I need to make a mark to let everybody know I'm still who I am. But for me and my heart and my spirit and my soul, I need to know that I'm going to be going home. But for my respect and my dignity for myself, I have to make sure this child molester is never the same. So I'm going to play razor tag with him. I'm going to slice him across his face so many times with my toothbrush and my razor that's burned into it with 4 other razors. Make sure they're nasty razors so he does get an infection and he's fucked up and the cuts never heal right and he's scarred for life. So I get out of confinement, and the reason I want to do this is because I won't kill him, yet everyone that looks at him will always remember I did that to him. And when this child molester looks in the mirror, he'll know Viking did that to him. So I don't take the risk of killing him, and I have everybody knowing every time they see him, ooh, Viking did that to him. And every time that chomo looks in the mirror, he sees that shit-stained, rusty razor across his face. Getting out of confinement, I get hold of the weapon. I start to make my maneuver, and I'm waiting for breakfast when it's dark out. And I don't feel any emotion. And it's time. About 4 days go by.